Louis, thank you so much. John and Tim, thank you guys for joining us. We're gonna we have to take care of a little bit of business first, and then we will go ahead and proceed to our discussion about Biscuit Run. I just wanted to welcome you both and thank you for joining us. So do you mind sharing the agenda? Thank you. Gosh. Oh yeah, that's better. So this meeting, oh, can you go down so I've got to read this. So this meeting is being held pursuant to and in compliance with ordinance number 20A 16, an ordinance to ensure the continuity of government during the COVID-19 disaster. The opportunity for public access and to participate in the electronic meeting are posted in the Albemarle County website and on the Albemarle County calendar when available. So we are going to go ahead and call the meeting to order. And I believe we have our members present are Bruce Gatlin Austin, Kate Malik, Michael Rodemeyer, Nancy Weiss, Peggy Cornett, and Christine Putnam. And we've got a couple guests here today, John Lewis and Tim Padalino. And it looks like we have some attendees, Beth Kuhn, Maggie and Rod Walker, and Nicole Jones are our attendees. So welcome to you guys as well. So do we have quorum? 1, 2, 3. I think we're good with that.
Yeah, we have 6. There's 6 members, so you do.
We're good. Fantastic. And we're gonna, let's see what time it is. We're gonna go ahead and just maybe we'll go ahead and review and approve the agenda and the minutes. So I hope everybody, there's our agenda in front of us. And can somebody move to approve the agenda?
I move to approve the agenda. Peggy Cornett.
Hey, Peggy. And a second?
Second.
All right, thank you, Michael.
And will we have some discussion?
Would you like to discuss the agenda?
I would just, there's a couple of things that I wonder if and when will be on the agenda, namely, how much longer will we, perhaps this has all happened. I haven't been to some recent meetings, as you know. How long will we continue to meet by Zoom since things are changing? And the subcommittee, I didn't understand the subcommittee pilot program because it doesn't seem any different from what we had talked about. So those 2 topics at some point I would like to see discussed.
All right, thank you, Nancy. And we'll make sure to touch upon those or try to in the time that we have here. All right, we're going to go ahead and vote on that agenda. So let's see. I'm just going to call Peggy. Are you in favor of that?
Yeah.
Michael?
Yes.
Bruce?
Yes.
Thank you. Kate?
Yes.
Oh gosh, now my things are flipping all over the place. Who did I miss?
Nancy.
Me, yes.
Nancy. Okay, Nancy. Okay, sorry. All right, I think we got everybody. Fantastic. And then I hope everybody had a chance to look at the May minutes and you had a chance to review and approve them. Is there any discussion or any questions about those?
No.
No. Okay. Would anybody like to move to approve those minutes?
I move to approve the minutes.
Thank you, Michael. And a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Peggy. And we're going to go ahead and take a vote on that. Michael?
Yes.
Peggy?
Yes.
Nancy, I don't.
Yes.
Yes. Bruce?
Yes.
Kate?
I'm going to abstain because I was not at that meeting.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did I get everybody? I think I have. Not everybody here. All right, terrific. So we can go ahead and approve those minutes. Hopefully. All right. So we're missing a few of our members, unfortunately, but I think we can go ahead and invite our guests in this conversation about Biscuit Run. So I want to thank John and Tim for being here. And I had reached, just to give everybody a little bit of background, Kim and I had taken a walk in the southern part of Biscuit Run. Oh, it was probably about a month ago now. And there were a couple things that we noticed. We noticed that there are parts of that southern portion that are really free of invasive plants and just really just in a beautiful state. And we also noticed that there were several trails, a lot of social trails, social bike trails back there. So we thought this is a great opportunity to invite the members of Kambic to talk about ways that we could partner together to potentially address some of the invasive plants that are there, and also talk about, is there a way that we can have some of those social trails avoid the sensitive areas in the park. And it sounds like, Kambic, that you are pretty good about letting your members know when to be careful about erosion, when to ride, be careful not to ride if the conditions are too wet and muddy. And so we thought this is a great opportunity for us to partner with you. And yeah,
go on.
and
Well,
also,
I just want to say, I represent Kambic. I'm the president of Kambic, and we're a mountain biking club. And so, we as a club have very specific activities that we do. We work with land managers. We have a relationship with Tim and Tucker, and help fund trails over in Lake Hayward and things like that. And we're really advocate trails for everyone to use and sustainable trails. And as well as that, we do everything we can to educate the bikers, which is becoming an increasingly popular sport. I'm also on the board with the Ravenna Trail Foundation and have relationships with the Charlottesville area trail runners and a variety of different groups. So this is a great opportunity. I know that those groups, the RTF, Kambic, and the runners are all interested in invasives. We deal with them all the time on the trails. We don't know much about them other than some of us know how to recognize them, but certainly not what the right thing to do is, how to mitigate them, where, what's the most dangerous, et cetera. So I think this is an opportunity for a two-way education process. Those trails in Biscuit, that what you're calling the social trails, Kambic as an organization has nothing to do with them. Some of those are old roads. I know there's sort of local members and runners and bikers who go out and use them. But agree with you that I think there's a real opportunity for educating our membership and maybe engaging them in activities that are a combination of trail, management, trails maintenance, but also invasive mitigation. And anything we can do to pass on education to reduce that opportunity to spread invasives, or at least have our members understand the process around them and how to avoid it, and maybe what they can do on the side to stop it or reverse it. We're all ears and really would love to work with you guys on that.
That is really great news to hear, because we can just see how you're able to rally your members to really get things done. And I think that there are opportunities, especially in that southern section where, some of the Oriental bittersweet and autumn olive is just beginning to take root, and it's still small enough that you could hand pull it up. And so I almost feel like if there's a possibility of making, starting from those areas rather than, trying to deal with the places where it's completely overcome with them, because there are some really lovely natives in there. So if we can just kind of get in there. So that's part of the reason it's great to have Tim on the call as well on the meeting, to see if there's a way that we can, enlist a group of volunteers and get out there and do some of that work, that hand pulling that can be done. And I'm really glad that Rod and Maggie Walker are listening in as representatives of Blue Ridge Prison too, because they also have the know-how and expertise to help guide us with that. Tim, I was wondering if you wanted to talk to us a little bit or give us a little overview of sort of where we are with the park and if you think that this could happen.
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Christine. So I see a lot of new faces from my perspective, so I'll just introduce myself. I'm Tim Pavolino, work in the Parks and Recreation Department for the county. Relatively new with this department. I spent several years as a planner in the Community Development Department and have worked in other localities in Central Virginia. But yeah, just as a sort of introductory comment or as a reminder, you know, Biscuit Run Park is actually owned by the state, by the Commonwealth, and the county leases it. So we are leaseholders and, you know, the primary stewards and someday the operators of the park. And we're laboring to get that thing open to the public with a vehicular access point off of Route 20. That'll be open to the public in late summer or fall of next year, 2022. So with that in mind, a lot of Parks and Recreation staff's efforts are currently focused on the central portion of the park, kind of between Mill Creek and Southwood and Route 20 and what we call 400 Acre Woods. So, you know, that includes some trail building or trail maintenance, trail modification. It includes partnership with Kambic on the construction of a new section of multi-use trail over the winter. And I've not actually been to the southernmost portion of the park in a long time, since July of last year, and spent a lot of time in Biscuit Run Park over the winter, but actually the water was up so high that I couldn't safely cross that tributary that separates the central portion from the southern portion. So I'm eager to get out there and kind of see what things look like, you know, in full foliage season, see what kind of trails are there or new trails might be there. But I'll just say, I as leaseholders, one of the necessary outcomes that was kind of determined by DCR was that we need to have invasive species management activities happening in the park, you know, with positive, successful outcomes. So, you know, from my perspective, it seems to make a lot of sense, Christine, to focus on kind of battling the front edge of the invasive creep and trying to get that southern portion of the park as, you know, pristine as we can get it. And I think it's a totally different task in some of the other portions of the park where the autumn olive is really extensive in some places, and others, like you said, the bittersweet, Oriental bittersweet. So from a strategy standpoint, yeah, I think it makes a lot of sense to focus on the southern portion of the park. And I think from a, you know, a practical standpoint, we can absolutely work with volunteers and collaborate and co-labor and figure out how to do this and get it done. It's really important to us too. It also seems like an opportunity to bring in perhaps multiple different organizations or entities and other like-minded folks who would be interested, because it does seem like a big job and we wouldn't want to over rely on any one particular group. But, you know, I'm here to say that Parks and Recreation is definitely on board with this, and Kim and a few others in Parks and Rec and other county departments worked on a sort of invasive species management policy and protocol document over the winter. So that kind of puts us in a good position to, you know, to do this work in accordance with those new standard operating procedures. So
yeah,
I'm really glad this seems to be coming together with some momentum.
yeah. One of the things that was particularly attractive to that particular area because the, you know, thinking about the policy with the herbicide use, if there's an opportunity to actually hand pull and be effective with doing that, you know, rather than, you know, if we can actually hand pull and get the root bases out, which I think there is the opportunity to do that for some of those, that front edge. And the other thing is, Kim, you had your hand up, and also this task force, if maybe you could talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to just mention again. So I sent a link to this committee after I saw this great presentation about the James River Invasive Plant Task Force that's focused on the James River State Park, I think it's called. And it was just a fabulous presentation, and it's this collaboration of different organizations that lead volunteer groups out, and they actually had a consultant do a real invasive management plan for this park and target certain areas and certain species and sort of have a ranking of priority. So anyway, I think it's a great idea. I know there's other folks from the Rivanna Conservation Alliance who are really excited about this idea. And it's a little bit bigger than just Biscuit Run, but I think that there might be an opportunity for Biscuit Run to be sort of a pilot of how something like this might work and get off the ground. So it's kind of an exciting idea. And of course, Kambic, if we're willing to join, as well as the Rivanna Trails Foundation, I think that would just be fantastic.
Yeah, I think having that extend to the Rivanna River, the trails and on down would be really super.
Yeah, I mean, you all know that some of the areas are so bad, and we don't have good guidance on best practice about, when we clear trails or mow trails or do things like when we have volunteers that are out mowing, we don't say, hey, you guys should be pulling the roots out of these plants within 5 feet of the side of the trail. And how do we mark these things, and which of them do we need professionals to deal with versus what can be done voluntarily? So I think these are the things that, from a trail maintainer perspective, or when we're designing new trails, any kind of education is really good. And secondly, it's the users too. If users know that they should stay away, or if they see seeds on their socks, to pull them off right away, that kind of thing. And when we're mowing trails, what the corridor should be. I think these are all things that's an opportunity for us to mitigate the spread of it. That's a positive and a negative with biking. Biking it's a wonderful sport, super fun, but it's far ranging. And if while you are lifted off the ground, if the trail has not been brushed back, you are scraping in all this stuff, and then so we're part of the problem, as are all of us who are trail users. So anything we can do to educate ourselves. So we're 100% in on coordinating with this. And if it involves volunteer parties that help pull plants and learn about them, I think we get a lot of response from our side. And I just want to point out, Tim didn't say it, but officially, our message is Biscuit isn't officially open. And so if you're in the park, hopefully you're doing something to help scout, or that our language is don't create new trails, work with the county on this, and if you see issues, let us know, and let the county know, and particularly on people abusing things. So any excuse to have a formal event where we can introduce people to the park and parts of the park they haven't been to as part of an educational experience, I think we get a lot of positive response.
That's awesome and really exciting. Lonnie, did you have?
I did, before my internet connection drops again, which it probably will. CenturyLink has been terrible today. So my comment, if it hasn't already been made, I hope that we could get Kambic and other volunteers trained on iNaturalist, so that they can start identifying the plants that are there before they put trails over them, and also consulting iNat to make sure there aren't plants that are important before they put trails there. It'd be nice to work to put together a list of things that, obviously we don't, if it's just an ordinary violet or something, we don't care if someone puts a trail over it. But if it's recognizing species that we would like trails routed around, would be an important thing, I think. For example, there's a colony of pink lady slipper that the community was concerned about. And so recognizing that those are there, that observation has occurred, and putting a route around it would be good.
Yeah, Lonnie, just that, we haven't put in any trails Kambic is not supported because I can't speak for the community, but the Kambic works closely with land managers, and we approve any trail we put in, we approve. So for example, with the county, we've worked closely with Tim, and we will flag something, and we've got the hot zones marked out of what's acceptable and not acceptable. And the same with the city. We anything we did in Hayward was after the resource, I can't remember his name, but the group went in and identified the zones to stay away from. I completely agree with you. The more we can educate, and iNaturalist training and getting more engaged with that would be really, we'd love it.
I'd be glad to come out and train, and maybe I could volunteer some other members too, but I'd be glad to come out and train anyone on iNaturalist if you have a meeting or something where you'd like someone to come out and do that training.
Okay. Super.
The other thing is too, is the time of year that the trails are built. I think that the big thing is if you're building trails through a new area, particularly a new park or a new place that's not well known, then making sure that, you know, we've had the opportunity for a naturalist to get out and look at that area, or that Kambic themselves are trained in, and other volunteers, not just Kambic, but other people are trained to do a survey of that area and to identify what plants and things are there before that trail goes in. I've seen some circumstances where trails went in the winter when no one knew it was there, and then by spring you come up and like, oh, that was not a good place to put a trail. So that would be another little bit of advice I might have.
Yeah, and while, as again, I'm just being careful because Kambic is an organization. We don't, a lot of trails that have gone in, particularly in Biscuit Run or being maintained in Biscuit Run, Kambic has nothing to do with. But some of them are members, or like we know indirectly. And so anything we learn and we push, we can push that down to people who are doing stuff. I think that's the real opportunities. The more we educate our base, the more likely we're going to get better behavior.
Yeah, and I guess the opportunistic trails, if that's the right, is that the right term? I can't remember, but people that there's definitely been a lot of activity within Biscuit Run of like sort of community members just like building their own trails, and I don't know how.
We call them unsanctioned. That's internally. I don't know what Tim calls them.
Yeah, I guess we call them different things, but yeah, that's a good term. And Lonnie, to your point, you know, we are trying to be, you know, mindful and deliberate about where the trail construction is happening. In the case of Biscuit Run Park, I mean, people have been recreating there for over a decade now, and so, you know, it's a difficult situation in terms of managing that land when we're so close to opening to the public, but we're not able to really have boots on the ground and oversee things day to day. But I will say our trails crew is pretty good with plant ID. They're really clued in to sustainability at small levels, you know, to big levels of that term and that concept. So, you know, trail construction requires land disturbance, it requires impact, but I think they do a really good job on balance of, you know, building and maintaining trails thoughtfully and as delicately as possible.
Yeah. I mean, do you feel like that your team is trained in INAT? So that, because we went through efforts to actually identify some unusual species that did grow in Biscuit Run, and it would be, you know, in some cases we even flagged them, and it would be nice to make sure that people are using that information and routing stuff around the stuff that we've taken pains to identify.
That sounds like an opportunity that we've yet to seize on. So I think, you know, I'm all ears for that. I think Tucker and others would be pretty receptive to that. Tucker Rollins is our trails maintenance supervisor.
Yeah, and the same thing I said with, you know, I would be willing to do INAT training for staff as well. You know, and so I think, shoot, I had some other comment I was going to make. I can't remember what it was. Yeah, but I know that the staff are, you know, sensitive, and the question is, how can we take the information that we're getting from the community and other naturalists? Oh, I remember what it was. I think it would be helpful, maybe as just a proposal to this group and or county staff. Maybe we can, if it's not already a thing, maybe we can have like a sign that says unsanctioned trail, do not use, or something that we could plop down in places where some of these trails are occurring. Or maybe even better, sensitive area, unsanctioned trail, please do not use. So that we can point out some of these areas that are problematic and make community members aware that this is an issue.
Is it, I mean, part of it is, are you closing an entire trail because of a small area? Is there an opportunity to guide or put in a route around the sensitive spot?
Well,
I think the challenge that the mountain bike community had with the way the Ravenna natural area debate happened was that the Natural Resources survey went in and they declared areas hot zones. And it was misinterpreted as don't go there, rather than, you know, be really careful when you go here to be aware of what you do and be controlled as you go through it. And so there was a lot of misperception about the term. So, the concept of closing an entire trail because of it happens to pass near something that's sensitive, maybe there's ways to reroute it so it avoids a sensitive area, but not closes an entire trail. That's the kind of partnership we're looking for.
Yeah, well, the procedure that I would see is that I would think we could train some people to identify some of these unauthorized trails and authorize them to put flags in there to identify some of these, like this is a trail that shouldn't be here. It's not like, it was not planned by the county as an official trail. And then we can work with the county and Kambic to plan an official trail that's actually planned to go through. And I agree with you. We shouldn't be shutting down entire trails, but if the trails were put there in an unauthorized fashion without planning, then yeah, we should close that section until we can put in an authorized planned trail.
Yeah. Close. I mean, it's hard to enforce signs.
Well,
Yeah.
I know.
All right, I've got a couple more. I know Nancy wants to comment, and also I want to hear from Rod as well. He had his hand up. So, Nancy, do you have a comment?
Mine's brief, because it seems like we're talking about two different sections of Biscuit Run. One, you were talking about the bottom third, and it sounds like from Tim that there's no plans for the county to do anything as far as trails there. So maybe all of those could be labeled with Lonnie's idea. But in the middle part, which is where it sounds like Tim is planning, I would like to know, are you working just on your own to decide, and or are you working with Kambic? And it seems it might be useful to use some of the social trails. And to Lonnie's idea of labeling the trails, since all of the trails currently are social trails, I don't think you can do any labeling until you decide on some official trails, so that you have a place that people can go. Otherwise, you're basically saying just close the park to anybody using the trails at all. So I don't think we can label them just yet, until the county has decided some places. And if the social trails are there and are that well developed, then there's not going to be any pink lady slippers there because they've all been destroyed. So,
Yeah.
I would think that it might be more efficient in time if, because of people like John have been out there and have already thought this is a good place for the trail that would really be nice for the bikers, then maybe that week could be very efficient and just look at that area for special things, and see if there's something that could be routed around, rather than trying to look at the whole place. Those are just some of my thoughts on it.
Yeah, it makes
Yeah, that makes sense. I think we can somehow work out a procedure that works for all of us, and maybe the thing is it's maybe we have a short email or something that goes between a group of people, like maybe Tim and John or whoever else needs to be on that email. It says, hey, there's a trail that's a problem. What do you guys think about like labeling this trail, like getting people off this trail until we can, we should have like a triage group or something that looks at these issues, particularly when things are raised by the community.
well,
Yeah.
definitely. it makes sense to actually know, for the public to know what is an official trail. And I don't know when that's going to happen or how those trails are going to be labeled, but that seems pretty important. Because it's kind of hard when you're there to know what is what.
Yeah, and it's tough in our position wanting to have, wanting to ensure people's safety, but recognizing they're not supposed to be there. It's a really strange limbo situation to be in. But to respond to that, and maybe to some of the points Nancy was making or the questions she was asking, we're gonna continue to be focused on trail activity in the central portion of the park. Again, I'm sorry I don't have visuals with me tonight, but we've got a pretty good strategy coming together in terms of which existing trails to retain and improve in certain sections, where we need to do certain reroutes or realignments for different reasons. It could be resource management, or it could just be, the user experience. And then there's sections that need to be closed and new sections that need to be built. So we kind of have, we're thinking about that in those different buckets of work. And again, I don't have a diagram to share or anything like that, but all of those trail planning activities are really well underway and starting to come together. And following those, that's when we're going to get into signage and trail names and map making and getting this out to the public. Again, we're kind of looking at like August, September, that time frame of next year as when we're expecting hordes of people to be enjoying Biscuit Run Park, and really want to make sure the trail network in the central portion of the park is as good as we can get it within that remaining time frame. And that's not to say we're not also focusing on other important objectives, like trying to connect to the north through some of the private HOA open spaces to get to, 5th Street Station and connect into the RTF trail system. Like, those are really big, important goals too. We've been working with Southwood a little bit to make sure that we're going to coordinate on their private trail system and having that synchronized well with the trails in Biscuit Run Park, as well as managing some sensitive hydrological resources within the park property that are close to Southwood and close to Hickory Street. And then, of course, there's invasive species management, which is just a very big issue to tackle. But that's sort of why it may seem like, well, we really need to get some maps. We need some more information. There needs to be more happening. But I think those things are starting to happen and are pretty well underway. And there will be some good progress in the coming months.
As this process is occurring, could we work with maybe the county GIS to have a map that's shared of these trails that are under development, so that we could, even better at, you can overlay INAT resources on top of, you can build a layer out of that stuff. Could we get GIS involved to sort of have something that's shared that we can all look at, and as this is occurring?
Yeah, I think we can look into that. We can try to make something happen. I know Andrew Walker, I think, had assisted this committee in years past and came up with some nice products, some nice deliverables. So I think we can find a way to, layer different data together and use that as, a way to guide what happens.
I think that'd be excellent. And Andrew is extremely talented. I have faith in his abilities.
Yeah, and he's not with Albemarle County right now or anymore, I should say, but yeah, he's done good work in the past, and that's a good team at GDS, and they can help us. It's been interesting just observing that park for the past 16 months or so now. The beaver activity around the pole barn and the agricultural pond, it has become so extensive that we're beginning to think differently about trail planning because of the changing landscape and the beaver engineering that's going on. So it's just a cool reminder that this is a dynamic place. It changes over time. And what we thought worked well last year probably isn't going to work right now. We have to be, flexible and respond to what the park is telling us.
I would also really like, it was in our committee's recommendations to get some areas, some of the grassland areas restored. And I don't know if that's been brought up today, but I mean, I would also like to see to get fire on the ground to do some controlled burns. And when I say that, not burning, I realize we're near residential areas, so I know there's sensitivity about that. But you can burn tiny sections. You can burn 10-foot sections. You can do tiny, but it'd be nice to get some areas properly restored back to grassland habitat up there. There were some sightings of bobwhite quail in that area. It'd be nice to encourage that. Get some quail habitat up there, a place where urban people can hear and see bobwhites. That'd be great.
Mhm.
All right.
Yeah, I've been starting to learn about the grassland assemblages and some different things that are kind of unique within the park property. I think we're pretty open-minded in terms of managing the park in a certain way, or making sure that land disturbance and improvements happen with sensitivity to where those grassland resources have been or might still be. And it also seems like an opportunity maybe for a little bit of experimentation, different plots, treating different plots in certain ways, seeing what can happen there in terms of restoring and letting that grassland come back.
Yeah, NRCS is offered to lend their expertise since they work with, habitat restoration, even though they can't officially fund, it's not agricultural anymore, but they, I think Corey and other people would be glad to come out and provide their expertise in terms of advice.
Yeah, that seems like another good lead.
All right. Well, thank you. I want to make sure that Rod and Maggie Walker, I don't know if they had their hand up, and Carolyn, wondering if you could unmute them so they could comment. I'd love to hear.
They're ready to go anytime they are.
We're here.
Yeah. Oh, great.
Yeah. So this is Rod Walker. So John and Tim, when it comes to invasive species removal, in particular, if you have people who are looking for some basic education and understanding how to identify and remove these kinds of plants, we at the Blue Ridge Prism conduct workshops periodically. In fact, there are 2 of them scheduled yet in June, one on June 12th and one on June 24th. Any of your people they're all open to the public. People can sign up to attend. I think there might be a $10 fee associated with those. But in addition, I would say if you have a significant group and you just want to schedule something separately, we can potentially do something similar, for, if you will, a private group, if you want to go that route. And the other thing we can potentially do, given that things are freeing up with COVID, we haven't been doing these things in person, but it's not a crazy notion that sometime this summer, one of our folks might be able to just come walk Biscuit Run, with a group and just talk about, plants and what's there and what's not there, and how do you deal with this one versus that one, if any of this is relevant or helpful to you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll pass that on. I know there's a lot of interest in the fact that you guys exist. I'll pass that on, and I'm sure we'll get some interest on that. There's a lot of opportunities.
Yeah.
So thanks, Rod.
Yeah, just let us know.
Yeah. Thanks, Rod. I think that.
And you guys are blueridgeprism.org?
Correct.
Okay.
Great. Yeah. And sometimes I think just along with that, if we can get that work group out, there's just a lot of learning that can happen in process as well, in the process of doing the removal. Thank you, Rod. And Emily, you had your hand up.
Yeah, just briefly. So I really appreciate that the park is so interested in knowing what's there and stuff. I've done a couple of surveys there with the Center for Urban Habitats, and have been out there a few times otherwise. I just wanted to say that what I'm hearing, though, I've also been out with Tucker and all of the work crew at Pretty Creek for work days and stuff. And yeah, you're right. I think they're really receptive, and when you're out with them, they sometimes, oh, the paper birches are up that way, or so I think they have a good awareness. And Jessie Wingo in particular, if other people don't know she works on the CUH landscape crew, and she is really good with her plants and really aware of that. I hear of her sometimes going and saving, saving plants as needed and helping route things. But what I'm hearing from Lonnie is sort of that I know as a master naturalist, we get these, hey, volunteer work opportunities, go to Pretty Creek and help with the trail building. But at that point, the trail's already been mapped out. It's more about like putting it in. And what I'm hearing from Lonnie is sort of like wanting to have that sort of volunteer opportunity. And there are a lot of people who are really good with plants, like Lonnie and others on this committee, who it sounds like would like to volunteer just a step earlier, right? So I don't know if there's something similar that could happen to those trail work days, because those are really successful at getting people organized and out there for that specific purpose of putting it in. But if there was a trail planning day where you can invite some specific like plant people out, it sounds like that might fill this need and along with using INAT. So that was just my thought.
Thanks.
No,
Emily.
that's valid, because that's sort of our work is we beg, borrow, plead, do whatever we can to get permission to go flag trails. Is this possible? Can we do it? And if the nod is yes from the land manager, we'll go in and throw flags down on a trail that is sustainable, so we're looking at it from a sustainability and its height and all of these other things to make good visibility and sight lines and yada. But what we don't do is think about the plants. So Lonnie, you're absolutely right. I mean, it's at that point where we're tromping through the woods, dreaming of where a trail could go. Once we have permission to site one out, would be the opportunity to engage you or whomever to come with us and sort of walk through the area. And you guys would say, well, it'd be an education experience too. Like, look, stay away from this stuff, like go around here, that kind of thing. I think that's the opportunity there.
Yeah, that's exactly kind of what I'm thinking about, because it's the same thing, right? I could go out and tell you about a fair number of plants, although I'm not as good as some people, but I know very little about trail building. I have picked up a little bit from these volunteer days, right? But mostly that's about clipping and just getting through what's there. So I do think that would be the right time.
No, I'll reach out to we have a couple guys who are really good at the trail map concepting, like here's where it can go and how to climb a hill and where to avoid, water running down a trail, for example. It's all about water management, fundamentally, the way we do it. But I think, getting education about what's good in that, what's sensitive in that area and what we can get rid of, and that in control points and that kind of thing would be really good. So I'll certainly reach out. Lonnie, I think I've got your email.
Yeah, and I think ideally what we'd get is, just as you probably have a list of volunteers that you say, when you're looking for people to come out and do trail work, it sounds like we also need a list of people that could be potential trail surveyors that we could send out like, hey, here's the trail that's planned. We need some trail surveyors to come out this day, or we need a trail surveyor to come out this day and look at this area that's been flagged.
Yeah. So in the past, when we were in, I know with Hayward, we were certainly very cognizant of the report, that a detailed report that was done for the Hayward thing. We stayed away from a lot of the stuff that was considered sensitive. And I think it sounds like, I don't know if there's I know that there's some preliminary work was done in the initial trail plan that the county supervisors approved. And there were some hot zones identified, but it sounds like with Biscuit, there's more of that to happen. And I think getting us fluent in iNaturalist will help a lot as well.
Yeah, well, then I think you can start to recognize, and not just, I want to be very specific that it's not just identifying like, here's an unusual plant, and so there we should stay away from this one plant, but also getting a sense of natural communities as well. I mean, there could just as easily be an area that's sensitive for amphibians or for other natural resources that we might want to stay clear of to route around. So just, getting that sort of feeling of getting used to the tools, the kinds of tools that we use when we're out there. So you can, eventually you guys you probably don't even need a naturalist out there. You'll have those skill sets yourselves. But if you do need a naturalist,
Gosh,
Yep.
looks like you got Bonnie frozen there.
Yep. I get it. I get it. And we, you know, I'd love to say we build trails all the time. Getting permission to build trails is rare. I mean, we're in this unique opportunity with Biscuit and Hayward and, you know, some private landholders where we have these opportunities. So to do it right the first time, I think makes a lot of sense.
Well, I think that we have the start to this partnership, and I hope that we can follow up with some of these ideas, and we can maybe continue the conversation. But hopefully down the road, whether it's training with the iNaturalist, getting a team out there to do some invasive removal, et cetera, et cetera. So thank you. Was there anyone else who wanted to make a comment? Or I know Kim had her hand up.
Yeah, I put it down because I wanted to let that conversation finish, but I wanted to follow just on something that Rod Walker had said about organizing a training specifically for a smaller group. And that's something I just wanted to remind everyone that we did talk about. Tim mentioned the conversation that I had with Parks and Rec earlier this year, and we developed this volunteer options for working in county parks. And that was one part of it. So at some point, maybe, you know, Tim, we could work together to organize some kind of training, or I'd be happy to facilitate it for the trails crew if that would be useful, related to invasives management. So that can just potentially become a part of their everyday if it's not already.
That would be great.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of opportunity, Kim, for you and I to coordinate on a lot of these ideas and really try to get some things in motion, you know, whether it's this spring and summer or setting bigger things up, you know, but yeah, I think everybody I've talked to at Parks about this, which has been pretty thin because this was a recent invitation, but there's a lot of excitement and interest in developing broader and deeper partnerships to help steward and manage Biscuit Run Park and other parks and the greenways too. A lot of what we talked about at Biscuit is true for the Old Mills Trail, for example. So yeah, I think there's a lot of untapped opportunity. People in our community, whether they're trail users like Kambic and RTF and CATS, or whether they're coming from more of an inspiration with, you know, environmentalism and a love of nature, recognizing there's a lot of overlap there. But I think there's tons of people who would really be willing to kind of work towards making things better. So I think we're pretty excited to do that together.
Great. All right. Well, thank you both for joining our meeting and for having this conversation with us, and really look forward to continuing it and partnering and working towards some of the goals that we talked about today. So thank you so much. We will let you off the hook to enjoy the rest of your evening.
Take care, everyone.
Thanks, Christine. And thanks, John. I'll catch you later.
Thank you guys so much. All right. Have a good night.
You-
All right. Well, I think that was great and pretty exciting that we can, we have some more opportunities here with these partnerships. All right, Kim, would you mind sharing the agenda? We'll get us back on track. And Nancy, you're going to have to remind us when we get through here, because there were a couple things you definitely wanted to hit upon. But so I think Kim and I had a great opportunity to go to Emma's property over there on Jefferson Mill. And so although it's not an important site itself, but it's really close to our Jefferson Mill important site. And Emma's not here, I don't think. She's with us.
She was. I saw her.
Did
I
you?
saw her on here earlier. Didn't have her
Maybe her connection.
video on, but
She was on audio.
yeah.
Oh yeah, maybe. Well, we haven't gotten any rain, so. But at any rate, her place is absolutely beautiful. And speaking of beavers, what is so interesting is part of the property there's an old cow pasture, and it's really near the Hardware River. And I believe it was 13 years. There was, oh, I don't know if I'm getting this right, but they've had, in the course of 13 years, the property has really changed, and the beavers have made their mark and have created this absolutely gorgeous wetlands. And I know Emma is excited to have all of you out, and maybe perhaps that would happen in smaller groups, but to share this beautiful piece of land that they have. So I don't know if, Kim, you want to add anything to that, but it was really quite lovely.
Yeah, it's really nice. And I mean, the wetland is just, it's kind of astounding how, to look at it and think of it as a cow pasture just a decade ago. So it's really very special. And we saw an indigo bunting nest, which I think is kind of interesting. I'd never seen one of those before. But also would like to get into that wetland and take a look at the plants that are growing there, because a little more closely later on in the growing season, I think there's potential for something interesting in there.
Yeah, indeed. So that's all that I have to report. Did anybody else make it out to any of our important sites or have anything to report? Yeah. If not,
Emma's back on, Christine.
Oh, Emma, are you there?
Yeah, hi.
Hi, Emma.
Sorry.
I don't know if you caught any of, how effusive we are about that beautiful piece of property and our beautiful.
Oh, I didn't. I didn't catch that. No, I caught a lot of the Biscuit Run though.
Great.
I get off work at 5:30, so I was like rushing home to.
Oh my gosh.
To try to get on with you guys. So.
Well, we're glad you're here, and we're just saying that you were so generous in inviting us to come out and to see it, and that you are also willing to extend the invitation to others as well. So
definitely, yeah. I hope we can work something out in the future.
Yeah.
And I'm keeping an eye on that orchid.
Fantastic. Well, so I don't know if it doesn't sound like anybody else can report on any of the other important sites or any other visits. Yes, Emily.
Jump in. I forget which are which. So I'll just jump in and say that I've been out to Key West a number of times. CUH is doing some work out on the floodplains down at Key West, both a private property and the community-owned property. We'll be out there tomorrow doing some plots, and we've been doing sort of a real walkthrough inventory of lots of things. And so it's been exciting. The dwarf larkspur, beautiful, and had one of the staff found a dragonfly that we had not seen in our county yet. So that a rusty snaketail. So anyway, there will be more information, sort of forthcoming there, but I'm sure CUH Devin will share information when those plots and other things are complete, if the committee is interested.
Yeah, thanks for that report.
Yeah.
That's great. Well, while we're talking about important sites, one of the things in the education subcommittee, we now have our new landowner welcome letter. We've got it completed and ready to send out. And Kim had also, was able to get through the GIS. We now have access to, we can see when a parcel has been sold and how much it was sold for and the size of the acreage. So now we're in a much better position to kind of hone down who we're going to send those letters to. And then along with that, we have a revised set of landowner resources that Michael really put together in different categories. And I think it's a much improved list. So this is a document from 2018, and I shared it with everybody in the email where we had actually ranked the important sites by conservation value. And then there's a column where people can just say, I'm going to sort of take on and be the steward of this important site and be work on having some contact with the landowner. And now that we have the resources, we have the letter template, I think it can be much easier. So I'm going to share the letter template and the resources, and I'd like you just to revisit that list again and think if you might take on one or two of the important sites and sort of be that liaison or that person who initiates contact with the landowner. Yes, Nancy.
Christine, are these, both of these things still in the Google Doc, the Google Drive docs that we can all use?
Yeah, they are.
Okay.
Yeah, and
sometimes the classification is difficult, but I'll look for that. And I also noticed that going over that document, you and Emily were the only people that had signed on to any spots.
yeah.
So the rest of us need to step up.
Yeah, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually send all of you the links, so it just won't be, you'll say, okay, it's just easier to find it, because right now they're in the education folder. So, and I also, so hold on and I'll send those to you, the
Okay.
link, you can find it much more easily. So anyhow, that's what I wanted to say about the important sites. And then I did give a little bit of introduction as to what the education subcommittee did meet. And of course, we talked about that landowner welcome letter. And I think at this point, we're not going to include anything in it. We're just going to have a link to the Natural Heritage website page where landowners could access the BAP, and they can access the Landowner Resources. And so I'm still working on this great, I think I've shared it with you, the brochure that's put out by the Piedmont chapter of the Native Plant Society, trying to see if we can get rights to permission to reprint that, because also the master gardeners are interested in using it as well. But it's it's just a real simple brochure that I think it could be super useful. And I also wanted to give an update on the conservation mowing. I was actually at Darden Tow today, and there's that little patch that still hasn't been mowed, and it looks to me absolutely beautiful. And Emma had created just a really lovely flyer. We went to Cape to have them look at it. It's got the county seal on it, and we got some good feedback about making some changes on that. So Emma, thank you for being so patient and willing to go back and make those revisions with that flyer again. So we're hoping to have that up, but it also opens up some other possibilities down the road, perhaps to have a QR code and link to some information that we can have on the website. And, so down the road, hopefully we'll have some space like a hub for all things environmental and more opportunities there.
Can I add real quick, Christine?
Yeah.
I mentioned this to Christine earlier that I am also working on trying to advance some of the recommendations you all had about the website and creating a hub for environment related information and resources. And so it's a little slow going because there's a lot of other priorities, but we are working on advancing that forward. And so hopefully at some point that document of resources for landowners could actually be, part of the website instead of a separate document. And then, it'll be easier to keep the links updated and have it categorized in a logical way. So, so hopefully progress, baby steps.
Absolutely. And I just want to let you guys know as well, I've been working with the Master Gardeners, and they have some really great programs that they're working to get off the ground. And one includes an outreach program to area nurseries as part of the plant northern native, I don't think I'm missing something in there, campaign. And so that is about to get off the ground, which I think is going to go a long ways to talking to nurseries, talking to suppliers. They're getting these plant lists together, and like a native garden in a box, like where you have a collection of maybe 7 or 8 native plants, like a little plant community that one could purchase. And so they're doing some really great work. They're also working on doing, I think I just mentioned this idea of doing visits to homeowners to help them improve their property for wildlife habitat. So I just want to and they're very excited to be partnering with the Natural Heritage Committee. I gave a little presentation about the BAP to a small group of folks there, and they were just excited to be part of this bigger picture of things that are happening here in Albemarle County. So it's really turning out to be a really wonderful partnership. And I did visit with Kim Swanson to Charlotte Humphreys Park, and they had 60 kids from St. Anne's Belfield for a week there. And they did a bunch, they actually did some invasive plant removal. They cut out the English ivy in just that one area where the kiosk is. And they laid down some mulch and did some painting, and they removed some, they had some plantings, non-native plantings around the little memorial kiosk, and they removed those, and they're going to be replaced with native plants. So there's some progress being made, and hopefully Kim and I looked around at possibly getting the plants maps tags up, and down the road perhaps inviting school kids to actually add stories to the online material. So that's my report. I don't know if I see a couple of questions. Emily, I don't know if you have a question, or Nancy, or a comment.
Oh, I'm sort of out of turn. I realized I forgot to say that I had also been to Brook Hill River Park to do some vernal pool monitoring, and we didn't see a lot from the vernal pool standpoint, that things were down, but I will say that the two things that I noticed were, I mean, sedges galore in there, like, I mean, 5, 6 easily for somebody who doesn't know the difference in their sedges, just lots of different sedges in there, huge jack in the pulpits and stuff. I took my DBH tape, and because I wanted to measure this cottonwood tree, and I didn't do a perfect job because there's like a gigantic poison ivy vine on it, but it's probably like 50 inches DBH. I mean, it's huge cottonwood tree down in there. So has some good potential, but the other thing that is just blaringly obvious anytime you're in there is the amount of trash. So I don't know if there's going to be, if there could be an effort sometime to clean that area up, but I mean, it would take a lot. You know, I keep thinking, oh, maybe I'll bring a bag when I go to, no, you need like a huge effort, group effort with many bags, sturdy bags. Like, I could make a small dent in a corner, but there's a lot of trash in that area. So I thought I'd mention that, since, you know, get that on people's radar. I know that park part isn't really being developed except for the boat ramp, but that is something to sort of keep in mind. So sorry, that was.
Well, Emily, I'm going to send you something, because as part of this Keep America Beautiful campaign, Albemarle County has just set up this interactive map where you can actually pinpoint where some trash is or litter.
Oh, okay.
And make a comment on that. So I'll send everybody the link if you have a place that needs some cleaning up.
Yeah, it desperately needs cleaning up in there. But like I said, there are some, you know, there are some nice, this is a nice habitat, nice area, I think, but.
Nice. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Nancy, did you have something did you want to add? I don't know if your hand was up, but maybe you took it down.
No, that was left up from before. No,
Okay.
not on this topic.
Yeah. I don't know if anybody from the education committee wants to add anything else to that report out. And if not, we could move on to the Oh, Emma, yes.
Just real quick, I'd just like to say that I feel like the next step for the education in terms of the flyer, moving forward with the QR code and like another project after in addition to the NOMO, is just helping people to identify grasses and plants in the meadow, and kind of telling the difference, because there's a huge difference between fescue and milkweed and all these different wonderful things that grow. And so I feel like that sort of would be a good next step for us to work on, and helping people understand that there's more than just grass. Yeah. It's not just grass.
Maybe you could do plants map there too, if it worked out. That might be an opportunity.
Or if the QR code led to like if it had like a bunch of photos of the invasives, just so people can get on and quickly see like what the invasives are and the invasive grasses, and then what the good plants are, the better plants to look out for.
Yeah, that's a nice idea. And in Scottsville, they're having a pollinator festival on the 26th of June. And so I think, right, Emma and I, we're going to try to be down there in Scottsville with, spreading the word. So that's exciting. Yeah, I like that idea. I've just woken up to grasses myself, so I'm really excited about them, especially the beautiful ones that are just nobody knows about. All right, thank you, Emma. Did the policy committee get a chance to meet? And
Christine?
Yeah.
Sorry, before you move on, I just noticed that Rod Walker has his hand raised. I don't know if you saw.
Oh, I didn't. Thank you, Rod.
I'm back.
Oh, great.
I just wanted to mention, given the subject of grasses, for what it's worth, July 21, the Blue Ridge Prism's quarterly meeting is on invasive grasses.
Oh, great.
So yeah, check it out on our website, blueridgeprism.org.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I mark my calendar.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So it's Lonnie, Nancy, and Kate with the policy committee. Do you guys, did you have a chance to meet?
We just haven't had a chance to get together to coordinate.
Yeah. And I don't know if you saw, you saw my email, but I thought, well, if you wanted to just take the last part of this meeting to just have a minute to talk, I don't know if that's useful at all, because we're going to try to end at 7.
Yeah, I mean, if Nancy and Lonnie have a couple of minutes, we could certainly coordinate a little. I don't want to keep everything going if we don't have to, but I mean, a couple of minutes to hash something out might be helpful.
But that brings up my comment about subcommittee meetings and the pilot program that Kim sent us the information on.
And Nancy, I think that has to be on a little bit of a hold right now, because I don't know if, like, for example, I've been holding these subcommittee meetings, and then of course I had problems with Zoom. And so I think that there's still some internal conversations about what needs to happen next in order for those meetings to actually happen. So.
Okay, but still part of the policies seem to be, they said to put it as a webinar, not a meeting, but then they said if 2 or more of us talk to each other, even on the street, that would be considered a meeting. And so it seemed very hard to have a subcommittee meeting unless it was convenient for Carolyn. And so, and that it had to be by Zoom is how that all
Yeah.
sounded to me, and I was just trying to get some more clarification on that.
Yeah.
Because things are quickly changing as to how open our society is now, rather than everything happening on Zoom.
Two people talking on the street is not considered a meeting as long as you all are not discussing committee business.
But we're very apt to. We care about this stuff.
Right, but I mean, you may talk about a plant, but I mean, you're not making formal decisions. You're okay. You're okay. As far as Zoom, right now, the county is staying the course with Zoom. We're not really sure how much longer that's going to be. What they want to do is some type of a hybrid thing where they can still offer Zoom, but some committees, such as the Planning Commission, Board of Supervisors, ARB, would meet in person, but also have a Zoom aspect. I have no idea what their plan is, and I don't think the county does at this point, as to how CAC meetings are going to be, or even this committee meeting is going to look like in the future. I do know that if you're going to have meetings on if you're going to have your little subcommittee meetings, it has to be done on a webinar format, which is expensive, which I think the county is looking into, because as Christina was talking about earlier, to get your own webinar, Zoom webinar account, it's pretty pricey. And I don't think that the county realized that. And I don't think they intend for you all to pay for that. I don't think I'm speaking out. I don't think that was ever their thoughts on that. My problem right now is I have about 4 nights a month that I do not have meetings.
That sounds terrible.
Yeah, I go to every CAC meeting. I do the PC meetings. I do this meeting, the ACEA, there's another one in there somewhere. And then any special meetings, I have to do those as well. I'm not complaining. I'm more than happy to help you all in any way that I can. I mean, I'm with COVID, I'm just glad I had a job the whole time and something to do. So, but it's just hard because I can only work 40 hours a week. And when I'm working till 7:30 or 8, 2 or 3 nights a week, that makes it tough for me to work during the day to help with other subcommittee meetings as well, which is, I think we're all trying to figure out how to do it.
Yes.
Am I misremembering that we could administer our own subcommittee meeting as long as we follow the guidelines?
But it has to be a webinar, not as a meeting. It cannot be a Zoom meeting. It has to be a Zoom webinar. Yes, you can.
When did that specific piece of the guidance come out? I just hadn't seen that change.
I think it's always been a Zoom webinar.
It was in the original rules, the original guidelines. I was not, for myself, I wasn't really computing the difference between a webinar and a meeting. So I was holding the meetings.
Sure.
And then I ran into the problem just recently. And so now I see why that's a problem to just hold a meeting. So I think until we get some more guidance from the county about, because who of us can afford $40 a month? I can't.
I have an account that's provided to me through my institution, my academic institution. So that's how I have an account. I would not be purchasing one separately.
Yeah. So if you can do a webinar, then you're good to go.
Okay. Just want to make sure.
Yeah.
And just make sure you get me all the information at least 3 business days before your meeting, along with the agenda, so that I can get it posted on the county website. And I'm always off on Fridays. So just make sure.
But then, Carolyn, that means that you don't have to come to it.
No, ma'am, I don't. But make sure, because we had another group. I want to say it's the historic preservation that thought that they could do. Somebody had a Zoom account through their work, but they didn't have access to webinars. So just make sure you have access to the webinar feature and you don't have to pay for it to make sure.
Check that. Yes, thank you.
Okay. And what the Historic Preservation Committee decided is they're going to take 30 minutes at the end of their meeting to have their subcommittee meeting moving forward till we figure out what the future holds. So that might be something.
One last question. Could you clarify about a phone number? Do we have to post a phone number? Is that correct or no?
Yes. Yes, a phone number, no passcode. Basic, yes, a phone. If you
I mean, like a contact number, like for technical difficulties versus an access phone number.
just an access number. Well, you don't have to. I think I list. What I do is when I put it on the calendar, I think I put for any questions, contact Kim directly, and we don't give someone for technical issues on those.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Great. Thank you for all that clarification.
You're welcome.
And Leah, did you want to report anything from the wildlife about the wildlife corridors, any of the work that you've been doing?
Yeah, sure. I can update y'all on a couple of things. One is I've been looking into some funding opportunities for that intersection of Highway 240 and 250 that I've talked about a couple of times. There's a couple of different programs that would probably pay for putting some vegetation in there that would work for providing wildlife cover. It's more under the guise of water, or the focus of preventing soil erosion, and also, of course, protecting the stream. But there's just a lot of moving pieces on the whole concept and the whole project. So just, to be determined. It's in the play, the game's going. And then the other is that I've been working with a researcher at Virginia Tech and professor, and then a researcher at Smithsonian Research Facility to put together a study to radio collar and track bobcat in the county to find out where they are and where they are moving, and to then look at that data, compare that information with the modeling that's been done in the state and in the county for identifying wildlife corridors. And you all probably heard me talking about different things over time. I've been trying to figure out for a couple of years what would be a good species that would be pretty indicative of other wildlife habitat or movement. Anyway, so after I've been doing a lot of research over the last couple of years and found a number of studies that pretty much verified that bobcat can be considered a good indicator species because they eat such a wide variety of wildlife. So, they're not just herbivores. So they eat all kinds of things. Therefore, if they're eating 12 different species of vertebrates, then obviously the habitat where they are and where they're moving has to have those vertebrates in it. So they could be anywhere where they're moving could be considered potential corridor for other wildlife, or at least habitat that's important to protect. So it's again going to be a kind of a bit of a long play in that Virginia Tech is looking at potential students to use this as a project for a PhD student. And we were working on a budget, but the the professor at Virginia Tech has had some medical complications. So things are on hold for a little bit until he gets better. But I did confirm that there is a good likelihood we can get some significant funding from a fairly elusive, large donor, private donor in the county. And then Smithsonian's going to look at putting in some money, and we're looking at, or finding some money, I should say. And then we're also looking at doing this as a large consortium where we would like to bring in a lot of different agencies and see if we can get a lot of different people to contribute pieces, because it would increase the stakeholders. It would increase, I don't want to say publicity, but kind of like awareness of the project, and hopefully be able to use this project to be a bit of a demonstration project for potential mapping of wildlife corridors in other places in the county. In the state.
That's exciting, Leah.
Yeah, thanks.
Really exciting.
It is.
All right, great work. Well, we look forward to hearing more as it unfolds.
Yeah.
All right, that is wonderful. I wanted to also, Leah, you serve on the ACE committee, and then Kim also has worked really hard with Chess. Good all with trying to get some of the recommendations in the BAB. right?
From
In
the BAP.
From the BAP, right? In terms of the criteria for the ACE conservation easement. So either Kim or you could kind of report on that.
Kim, you want to give it a shot?
Yeah, sure. So I don't remember if I shared this with all of you when I was working on it almost a year ago now. I spent a lot of time working on advancing this one recommendation that's from the BAP, which is to incorporate some criteria from the Biodiversity Action Plan into the ranking for new easement projects for ACE and the Albemarle County Easement Authority. So we were focused specifically on ACE, and I spent a lot of time working on developing that criteria of, basically scoring parcels higher if they fall into these important forest blocks, and ones that are that have a higher composite score for their ecological significance would score higher. And then for connectivity as well, with the habitat cores and other important natural heritage resources. So last week, I worked with Chess and urged him to work with the committee and the ACE committee, so I guess a subgroup, a working group, which Leah and two other folks from the ACE committee participated in, helping us sort of work through some of the details of the criteria. And they voted last week to adopt it. So that's really exciting progress, I think, and definitely a big step in working towards that goal in the Biodiversity Action Plan. So hopefully we can now work on the next steps, which are incorporating it into the ordinance and having it be in the official language.
Well, I
don't know how Kim gets everything done that she does. She's got her hands in so many things and is so influential in getting so many things done. Getting the criteria, trying to identify wording for the criteria and what criteria were most important from the BAP was all Kim. And Kim, if it wasn't for Kim, nothing would have ever happened. So thank you, Kim. No, truly, it would not have. The working group, we weren't meeting and then the full committee wasn't meeting and
yeah, this is a big step forward for us. And I just want to encourage members of the committee to let our supervisors know this is something that we are supportive of. In addition to having this criteria there for the new, we're paying for these easements. That's a lot of tax dollars. That criteria should be in there. And also, it'd be great to see some funding for those easements and to just be encouraging that this is something that we are happy to see our tax dollars being spent on. So I just want to encourage you, if you have time, to let your supervisor know that. Sound about right? Yeah.
Yes, and I guess I could mention one thing just that's good news that I just learned recently. When I've talked to people in general about conservation easements, typically something that's kind of thrown back at me is, well, has to be a large enough tract of land for one of the conservation easement organizations to want to hold it. This, 50 acres, they don't want to mess with it. And I hear that over and over. And I just found out that the Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District has a conservation easement program, and they're actually wanting easements, and their focus is small easements. So, and this came up in my discussions about that 240, 250 interchange. And anyway, I was just like, what? Because everybody else is like, oh, if it's not, 250 acres, we're not even going to think about it or whatever. So I just thought I'd mention that if anybody's talking to anybody about conservation easements, so many times I think there are valuable properties because our properties are getting subdivided. It's going to be important to have something like that.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great news. Maybe you could send us a link if you think about it.
There's no link. You just mentioned it to me.
Okay. All right. Well, we can look into that.
Well, there is a link on the on the Soil and Water Conservation District program Is that what you meant? They have information about their easement programs on their.
Oh, okay, great. I just got it from talking. Good,
Yeah.
thanks.
And
See, as usual, she knows what's going on.
Oh, no, it's okay. It looks like someone has their hand raised, Christina. It might be Lonnie.
Oh, okay, Lonnie. I've not seen everybody.
Got a
yet.
call-in number.
Oh, Lonnie. Are you there?
Hi, yeah, this is Lonnie. Sorry, my CenturyLink connection was bad, so I had to call in. So I should mention, I'm actually on the foundation board for the easements for Thomas Jefferson Soil and Water Conservation District. Actually just did a bunch of easement inspections last week. So that's thing one. So I can answer some questions about that if you guys want. The other thing was, in terms of getting the ACE criteria adjusted, it's worth noting that our committee has been working to do that for over a decade. From way back when Scott Clark was the staff liaison for the committee. So that's been a long term, I mean, maybe 2 decades that we've been trying to get the ACE criteria adjusted. So
hallelujah.
Just so you know, yeah, hallelujah indeed. So I'd be glad to see that finally happen. It's a long time coming. I sure wish. One thing, reading the notes about that meeting that occurred to me is when, thanks to Sean Tubbs, one thing that was mentioned is that when they went back and scored past easements, there were some easements that would have qualified with those, that if they had been scored under the new system, accounting for biodiversity. And my immediate question about that was, if that being the case, could we contact those landowners and see if they're still interested, I mean, assuming this passes, and get them to reapply, let them know that they do qualify, because it is a shame that, I mean, particularly if there are landowners that might have been contained in one of our special sites and wanted an easement and they were turned down, that's unfortunate.
Yeah, that sounds like a great project, a great thing to do. Nancy, did you want to make a comment on that?
Well, no, it's just that it is 7 o'clock and was going to give the policy committee time, but with the tell me thing and you were going to stop maybe, and now that we know that Kate has the webinar possibility, that maybe we'll just wait for Lonnie, Kate and I to get together using Kate's system and do that, and not tonight because I'm going to leave the program now.
Okay. All right. Does that sound good, you guys? Kate, hopefully you guys can get together and make that happen, your policy committee.
We'll do our best to meet. I'm not sure that I have webinar functionality, so if I can't make that work, then we're on hold.
I can set up a meeting with you next week and I can show you what it looks like if you want to, maybe Monday.
Oh, I don't have functionality in my account.
Okay, you don't. Okay.
It used to be there and they've taken it away.
Yes.
Of course. Of course. Well, you guys, we are then, if there anything else, if there's anything else anybody wants to mention, is anybody else going to tune into the Doug Tallamy presentation besides me? No? Okay. Well, I'll report back to you about it. Thank you. Yeah. Go ahead, Lonnie.
Well, I just did want to mention, while I was doing these easement surveys, I did encounter one of the county rare species. I found another occurrence of Rhododendron maximum of the great laurel in the county while we were doing the easement inspections. So that record has been recorded in INAT, and I'll be letting the landowner know that we found that species.
Fantastic. All right. Thank you, guys. And I hope everybody has a great rest of the evening. But maybe we should all do a rain dance and hope that we could actually get some rain, because I haven't gotten any yet here since the first week in May. Well, barely any.
Wow.
I know. All right. we will adjourn. Have a great month of June, and we'll see all of you in July, except for Kim. And she's not going to be here. She's having some little work done on her, a little adjustment on her knee. I hope you're okay if I just let everybody know. But wishing her well on that as well. All right, you guys take care. All right, bye-bye.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Thanks,
You're
Carol.
welcome. Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye, Evelyn.